Here today we have a Ford S-Max. It's the 2 litre TDCi 2010 model with roughly 80,000 miles on the clock. As part of the service I'm doing on this vehicle today, we're going to start with the engine oil and filter change. Right, so we've got this plastic cover on the top, which should just pull off. Underneath there you'll find the fuel filter, but yeah, we'll run through that in a moment. For this job you're going to be needing, well, not necessarily need a jug, but you'll have your tub of oil, handy to have a funnel, a light, a 21mm socket. You can use a spanner, I prefer to use a single hex socket. A pair of snips, it might look a little bit strange, but an old cable tie. A 10mm, you can use a ratchet or a gun just to make things a bit faster. And that's, probably looks a little bit weird as well. That's a 27mm step ring spanner, which I've clearly cut in half and modified for this particular engine. Right, so we need to get this cover off. It looks a bit broken. It should just pull off. I'll try and do it carefully, not to break it anymore. I've just got pegs underneath and sockets on the bottom of the cover. Oh, and around the other way there, you've got a peg there and a socket here. Get that out of the way. So, as with every oil and filter change I do, I like to just pull the dipstick up if I can. Take the oil filler cap off, which just allows air into the engine as the oil's draining out down the bottom. I will do the filter first. I think on these, it's a little bit fiddly. It's actually right down in there, a little bit difficult to see, but you can release this just by pushing that tab in there, pulling it up. Now you might be able to see the oil filter housing right there. I have got an adapted spanner to get onto that one. I've unclipped this wiring loom and just pulled it up because it's a little bit difficult to see what we're doing in here. I can point to it with this bar. That's the filter housing there. It's got a 27mm hex shape on the top to put your spanner or whatever you're using on there. I actually bought a spanner just for this job, as you can see, and cut it in half. Which should be able to get on there. Now, as I say, this is very awkward, especially if it's done up tight. Oh, that's got it. You haven't got a lot of space to work in here. It's not like you can put a extension bar down from the top because the manifold's in the way. So this might take a little bit of time because you haven't got much of a swing on the housing, but I'll carry on and get it to a point where I can lift it out and we'll come back to you with that. Right, it's ready to lift out. This is going to be messy, so I'll try and get some blue roll down there, catch the worst of it. You can always clean it up a bit from underneath once we get the tray off down the bottom there. There we go, one filter and housing. Right, come over to the vise. It's just a little bit easier to have that hold it still while we change the filter. And you can see the 27mm nut hex on the bottom there. Right, as you can see, it's quite messy. This filter should just pull out. Sometimes just needs a little bit of a lever up. That's it. I'll plonk that down on the drainer. And here in the groove, you've got the rubber O-ring seal. You get a new one of these with the filter. So, yeah, when you go to get the parts for your vehicle, just make sure you've got the registration number handy, and whoever you use will be able to look up the bits that are suitable for your particular engine. These aren't genuine Ford parts. It's a good aftermarket brand, and you should be able to get an oil filter for under £10, probably £7 or £8. This particular one, they're the same both ends, so it doesn't matter which way up you put it. That should just clip down in there. Then we've got the O-ring to go back in the groove. And that's it, all ready to go back in the car. Right, so we've got the filter clipped in, just pushes down on and clips on as you saw. And that's all ready to go back in place now. Again, it's just going to take a while to do this up. Right, that's nipped up now. Get this bit of blue roll out. Just saves dripping it everywhere. Still a few drips there, but it's got the worst of it. So I'll put this wire back where I found it. That's it. Just make sure the dipstick's still pulled and the oil filler cap is off. And next we'll take it up in the air and get the undertray off. As you find with most cars nowadays, we've got an undertray or belly pan. Some of them have access holes where you can get to the oil filter if it's fitted below, and the sump plug, but not on this one. They're just held on this particular model with 10mm bolts, so I'm just going to go ahead and get this tray off. Right, the sump plug on this is a 21mm. I've got a single hex 21mm socket here. It's a little bit overkill, 1/2-inch drive. You don't really need anything this big, but it's just what I had to hand on a single hex. Prefer using that because it reduces the chance of slipping and rounding stuff off. So as you can see, the sump plug is right at the bottom, not up the side on these. It's a cold engine, so it might take a while for the oil to drain down, so it'll be a bit thicker. I've got my drain tray handy out. Should be a copper washer, it's stuck to the sump up there. And just be mindful that the hotter the oil is, the faster it will come out and it will splash a bit. So as you can see, this is cold and coming out pretty slowly. So we'll just leave that to do its thing for a while now. Right, I've got the sump plug or sump bung here, and you can see it's got a copper washer on it. These are usually fine to reuse several times. Just make sure it hasn't been crushed and split or anything. That one looks fine. Of course you can pick up another one when you get your parts from your supplier. So that's slowed down to a steady drip now, which could go on for hours and hours. Don't have to go too mad. Should do. Right. We'll drop it down next and put some oil in. Right, let's get this funnel in there. Making sure the dipstick is stood up a little bit to allow the air out of the engine this time, and hopefully it won't all glug back up through the filler. So when I picked up the parts for this vehicle, they recommended 5.5 litres of engine oil, which is a little bit annoying, so that means you've got to buy a second container, as they generally come in 5 litre containers. You should be able to pick up 5 litres, around about 50 to 60 pounds. You can spend a lot more than that. It just all depends on the brand that you go for. I'm just going to put 5 litres in to start with and run it up. And the quantities recommended aren't always spot on, so I prefer to underfill slightly and then just top up in dribs and drabs. It's a lot easier to do that rather than put the whole quantity in and find it's too much and then have to get back underneath and take the undertray off and drain a bit down. And that's actually why I haven't put the undertray back on yet, because I've done it before a few times, overfilled and had to take the undertray back off. Gets a little bit annoying. So I'll leave that until the end. So yeah, overfilling can cause damage to the engine. Slightly different damage to underfilling, but obviously you don't want either. So we go with 5 litres. That's the oil filler cap, dipstick, sump plugs back in, oil filters done up tight. Right, I'll just get in and fire it up and let it tick over. Not a good idea to rev an engine that's just been started up, particularly if it's just been drained and refilled of engine oil, because it takes a little while to circulate. Yeah, the oil pressure light's gone straight out there, so that's a good sign. All sounds normal. Okay, that's all you need to do. Just let it tick over for a little while. We'll let it settle now for 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll check on the dipstick and see where the level's at. Right, so on the dipstick here, you can see you've got a notch there for the minimum and another one there for the maximum. So I'm hoping it's somewhere between the two. Expecting to have to top up a bit. Yeah, as you can see, it is just up from the minimum. So I'm going to go ahead and put a bit more oil in. and then just keep checking and topping up until we're as close to the maximum as possible without going over. Right, we'll let that sit again for another 3 or 4 minutes. Don't have to start it up again because the oil's already circulated and gone around the filter. So we'll just let that sit and then check on the dipstick again. Right, so I've had to top up a couple of times. And as you can see, we're right on the maximum now. So in total, that's taken 6 litres, which is surprisingly quite a bit more than they recommended. Right, all that's left to do, I'll put that back in, put the cover back on the top. Drop the bonnet down and we'll take it up in the air and get that under tray back on. Right, back underneath, get this under tray on. Now I found most of these have done up nice and tight, but these outer ones, they just spin, which it does happen as the fixings age, and they've been on and off quite a few times in their life. So these self-tapping 10mm body bolts, they just screw up into little nylon plugs in the subframe. You can pop these plugs out and replace them. I'm sure you'll find them on eBay or somewhere similar, so you don't have to go to the main dealer. But a good little tip that I found, if you've got a cable tie, often hang on to just the old bits, just cut a couple of bits off. You only need one per bolt hole. And put that in the bolt hole in the nylon plug first, and then put your bolt in, and you'll find actually that works really well. As you can hear, that's done up nice and tight now. I'll just do the other one. And that's it, that's the under tray back on. We'll drop it down. Right, that just about brings the job to a close. All that's left to do now, as I do with most of my jobs, just take it out for a run around the block. I always like to bring it back in and make sure there's no leaks from the filter or from the sump plug, if you can see it. I'll probably take it back up in the air and have a little peek, but I'm quite happy with how everything went.